Today, we are diving into a principle that is so fundamental, it literally powers our entire world. We're going to see how a simple, everyday magnet with one crucial trick can generate electricity. Let's get right into it. So let's start with the most basic question you can ask here. Can a simple magnet, just by being near a wire, actually create an electric current? It really sounds like magic, doesn't it? But is it possible? Well, the legendary scientist Michael Faraday figured this out way back in 1831. He ran these brilliant experiments and discovered that, a magnet can absolutely create a current in a circuit, but, and this is the key to everything, there was a catch. And here it is. A magnet just sitting there next to a wire, it does absolutely nothing. No current, no power, zip. The secret ingredient, the thing that unlocked our entire electrical age, is change. That magnetic field has to be changing to have any effect at all. Now, just a quick clarification. Faraday was, a genius. He also came up with famous laws about chemistry and electrolysis, but for this explainer, we are zeroing in on one specific discovery, his law of induction, the one that connects magnetism and electricity. So that brings us right to the core principle, the rule of change. Let's break down exactly what Faraday figured out. Here it is in a nutshell. Faraday's law of induction basically says that a changing magnetic field creates something called an electromotive force, or EMF, inside a circuit. Now, don't let the fancy name throw you. You can just think of EMF as voltage, and we all know voltage is what gives electrons that push they need to get moving as an electric current. Now, to really get this, we've got to talk about a term called magnetic flux. It sounds way more complicated than it is, trust me. Just picture all these invisible magnetic field lines flowing out from a magnet. Magnetic flux is really just a way of counting how many of those lines are passing through a certain area, like the loop in a coil of wire. And this is where it all clicks into place. It's not just that the flux is changing, it's about how fast it's changing. The quicker you change the number of those magnetic lines going through your coil, say, by moving the magnet faster, the bigger the voltage you're going to get. So the takeaway is simple. More change equals more voltage. Okay, but how does this all build on itself? Well, that brings us to our next section, nature's law of opposition, and what I like to call the mysterious minus sign. When you see Faraday's law written out as a full-on equation, there's this famous minus sign in it. But why? What's it doing there? It kind of implies that the current nature creates actually pushes back against the very change that created it in the first place. Why would it do that? I love this quote from a Reddit user named Yellow Glock because it just nails the explanation. If the current you created helped the change instead of fighting it, you'd get this insane runaway effect. The new current would make a magnetic field, which would increase the change, which would make more current, which makes an even stronger field, and poof, you'd be creating infinite energy from absolutely nothing. It would be like a universe-breaking cheat code. This whole idea of opposition has its own name. It's called Lenz's law. And really, it's just a more detailed explanation of that minus sign. It says the current you create will always flow in a direction that generates its own magnetic field to fight back against or oppose the original change that you started. So the bottom line is, this whole pushback thing isn't just some weird quirk of nature. It's a direct result of one of the most fundamental rules in the entire universe, the conservation of energy. You have to put work in to move that magnet against the opposition. And that work you do gets converted into electrical energy. There's just no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, so we know we need to change the magnetic flux. But how do you, actually do that in the real world? This brings us to the practical part, the three main ways to make a current. All right, there are basically three ways to get the job done. First, you can change the magnetic field strength. The classic example is just physically moving a magnet closer to or farther from a wire coil. Second, you could change the area of the coil itself. Picture a loop of wire in a field that you can stretch or shrink. That changing area would totally create a current. But the third way is the big one, changing the angle. If you take a coil of wire and just spin it inside a magnetic field, you are constantly changing how many field lines are passing through it. This creates a steady, flowing current. And that idea right there, that's the engine of our world. It's the basic principle behind pretty much every electric generator on the planet. So for our last section, let's just take a step back and appreciate the incredible world this one discovery created. Let's talk about the impact of the single, powerful idea.
This timeline really tells the story of how science works. In 1820, a scientist named Ørsted showed that electricity could create magnetism. Just 11 years later, Faraday comes along and completely flips the script, proving that magnetism could create electricity, as long as you have that key ingredient of change. Then, a few decades after that, the brilliant James Clerk Maxwell took all of these ideas and wrapped them up into the beautiful, complete equations of electromagnetism that we still use today.
And the impact was, well, it's almost impossible to overstate. This principle of electromagnetic induction isn't just some dusty fact in a physics textbook. It is the absolute bedrock, the fundamental operating basis of the machines that define modern life. The electric generators powering our cities, the electric motors running our machines, and the transformers that manage our entire power grid. And it doesn't stop there. The applications are everywhere, often in places you'd never expect. This law is at work inside your computer's hard drive, and every single time you swipe a credit card. It's also critical in cutting-edge medical tech. Cochlear implants use it to send signals right through the skin, no wires needed. Doctors use changing magnetic fields to treat brain disorders. It's even found in special monitors that help infants who have trouble with sleep apnea. So we end on this thought. Faraday discovered how to turn simple physical motion into electricity, and in doing so, he completely transformed human civilization. He found this deep, hidden connection between two forces we all thought were separate. It really makes you wonder, right? What fundamental connection are we missing today? What simple, overlooked observation is just waiting out there to be noticed that could change our world all over again?